Chapter 26, The Waning Green Light. The immediate aftermath of the greater demon's fall was a flurry of activity. The sanctified warriors, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten, moved swiftly through the ritual chamber, ensuring the greater demon was truly vanquished and that no other threats remained. Sister Ilar attended to the wounded, her hands moving with practiced efficiency, offering words of comfort alongside her healing bombs. Brother Thomas and a group of warriors ventured deeper into the fortress, securing the passages and chambers, their blessed weapons held ready for any lingering demonic presence. The rescued Blackwood guards, their relief palpable, were led to a more secure section of the fortress, offered food, water, and much-needed rest. Sira, still catching her breath, leaned against a crumbling stone pillar, her body aching but her spirit buoyed by their victory. Sister Agnes approached her, her face etched with a weary satisfaction. "The ritual has been broken," Sister Agnes said, her gaze sweeping over the now inert altar. "Whatever hold they had on Blackwood is gone." She then looked up towards the sky, where the massive Hellgate still pulsed, though its emerald light was noticeably fainter, its swirling vortex less chaotic. "And the Hellgate?" Sira asked, her eyes fixed on the fading rift. "Weakened," Sister Agnes replied. "Severely weakened. Without a strong anchor in this realm, its connection to the infernal planes is unstable." As they watched, the Hellgate began to shrink further, its edges dissolving into wisps of green energy that dissipated in the morning air. The oppressive atmosphere that had clung to Blackwood began to dissipate, replaced by the crisp, clean air of dawn. The remaining demonic presence within the fortress was minimal, mostly scattered pockets of lesser creatures easily dealt with by the Order. The focus shifted to securing the fortress and tending to the survivors. Sister Agnes organized the remaining Blackwood guards, tasking them with helping to clear rubble and assess the damage. Sira found herself observing the Order, their unwavering faith and disciplined efficiency. They worked seamlessly together, their actions driven by a shared purpose. The initial suspicion towards her had largely faded, replaced by a grudging respect and even a sense of camaraderie. Some of the younger warriors even offered her hesitant smiles and nods of acknowledgement. Later that morning, Sister Agnes gathered Sira and Brother Elias in the fortress's main hall, a vast chamber now scarred by battle but no longer under demonic control. Sunlight streamed through the shattered windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. "The Hellgate above Blackwood is almost closed," Sister Agnes announced. "But we cannot be certain if it is gone for good, or if other rifts might open in this region." Brother Elias nodded, his fingers tracing lines in his open book. "The weakening of such a significant rift suggests a disruption at its source, perhaps within the infernal planes themselves." Sister Agnes turned to Sira. "Your actions, Serafina, were instrumental in achieving this victory. You possess a power that could be crucial in preventing future incursions. We believe the threat to Blackwood is diminished, but the war is far from over. There are other Hellgates across Ethel, and the forces of the Abyss will not relent." She proposed that a small contingent of the Order, including Sira and Brother Elias, should remain at Blackwood to monitor the region for any further demonic activity and to study the lingering effects of the Hellgate. The rest of the Order would return to their headquarters to report their findings and prepare for potential threats elsewhere. Sira agreed without hesitation. She felt a sense of responsibility towards Blackwood and a growing desire to understand her powers and the nature of the demonic threat. Staying with the Order, at least for now, felt like the right path. As the bulk of the Order prepared to depart, Sister Agnes approached Sira, her gaze direct. "This is just the beginning, Serafina. The darkness is vast and ancient. But you have shown that even a single spark of defiance can push back the shadows. Be vigilant, trust your instincts, and never underestimate the power within you." With a final nod, Sister Agnes and the main contingent of the Order rode out of the battered gates of Blackwood, leaving Sira, Brother Elias, and a handful of other warriors to stand watch over the recovering fortress. The sky above was now clear, the green light gone, replaced by the warm glow of the morning sun. A fragile peace had settled over Blackwood, but Sira knew that the dawn of this new day also heralded the beginning of a much larger and more perilous chapter in her infernal awakening. The fight against the darkness would continue, and she would be ready. Chapter 27, Whispers in the Ruins. Life at Blackwood settled into a rhythm, a quiet hum of recovery amidst the scarred stone walls. Sira found herself falling into a routine, a stark contrast to the chaotic battles of the previous night. Each morning, she would join the remaining sanctified warriors for training exercises in the fortress courtyard. Their methods, focused on discipline and the channeling of holy energy through their blessed weapons, were vastly different from her own instinctive, shadow-infused style. Yet, they trained together, learning from each other, finding a surprising synergy in their contrasting approaches. Sira's agility and raw power complemented their coordinated strikes and unwavering faith. Much of her days were spent in the company of Brother Elias in the fortress's library, a chamber that had miraculously survived the demonic incursion relatively unscathed. Surrounded by stacks of ancient texts and scrolls, Brother Elias patiently shared his vast knowledge of demonic lore. He spoke of the different layers of the infernal realms, the hierarchies of demons, and the signs and portents of their incursions. Cyril learned about the history of the Order, their long and often desperate struggle against the darkness, and the various types of wards and rituals they employed. Brother Elias was particularly fascinated by Sira's ability to absorb demonic essence. He meticulously documented her descriptions of the different energies she had encountered, theorizing about their origins and potential applications. He even began to teach her rudimentary forms of mental discipline, techniques to better control the flow of infernal essence within her and to shield her mind from unwanted demonic influences. One afternoon, while sifting through a collection of recovered documents from the fortress's archives, Brother Elias stumbled upon a recurring symbol, a stylized, three-pronged claw mark enclosed within a circle. It appeared on various scrolls detailing past demonic incursions in the region, often associated with particularly powerful or cunning demonic entities. This symbol, Brother Elias said, tracing it with a trembling finger, it is ancient, Seraphina. It speaks of a force that seeks not just destruction, but dominion. A more organized, perhaps even, intelligent evil. As they delved deeper into the archives, they found more references to this symbol, often linked to whispers of a shadowy figure, a manipulator pulling the strings behind the chaotic demonic attacks. The Order's texts hinted at a being of immense power, possibly a high-ranking demon lord or even something more ancient and sinister, orchestrating the Hellgate openings for a larger, unknown purpose. The discovery sent a chill down Sira's spine. The demons she had faced so far, even the Serpentine demon, had seemed driven by instinct and rage. The idea of a more calculating, intelligent force behind them was deeply unsettling. A few days later, as Sira was training with the warriors in the courtyard, a lone rider approached Blackwood, his horse bearing the sigil of a distant monastery allied with the Order. The messenger, weary and travel-worn, carried urgent news. He spoke of a surge of demonic activity further to the east, near the ancient ruins of Eldoria. A new Hellgate, smaller than the one at Blackwood but far more stable and radiating an unusually potent dark energy, had opened. The demons emerging from it were different, more disciplined, and they bore a mark, the same three-pronged claw within a circle that Brother Elias had discovered in the archives. The news confirmed their growing suspicions. This was not just a series of random demonic incursions. There was a pattern, a guiding hand behind the chaos. The mention of the specific symbol solidified the idea of a more organized threat, one that was now actively expanding its reach across Ethel. Sister Agnes, who had returned to Blackwood with a small reinforcement after hearing the messenger's report, gathered Sira, Brother Elias, and the remaining warriors in the fortress's war room. The atmosphere was tense, the earlier sense of relief replaced by a renewed urgency. "The threat is growing," Sister Agnes said, her gaze firm. "Blackwood is secure for now, but Eldoria is in danger. We believe this new Hellgate is significant, possibly a key to understanding who or what is behind these attacks." She looked at Sira, her expression resolute. "Seraphina, your abilities have proven invaluable. We need you to go to Eldoria. Investigate this new Hellgate, assess the strength of the demonic forces, and try to uncover more about this symbol." Sira nodded without hesitation. The whispers in the ruins of Blackwood had revealed a larger, more sinister threat, and she knew she had to face it. Her infernal awakening had led her down this path, and she would follow it wherever it might lead, even into the heart of the encroaching darkness. The journey to Eldoria, she knew, would be far more perilous than anything she had faced before. Chapter 28, Eastward to Ruin. The journey to Eldoria was undertaken with a sense of urgency that had been absent on their ride to Blackwood. Sira rode alongside brother Marius, a stern but capable warrior who had been part of the initial scouting party to Blackwood, and sister Lyra, a younger member of the order known for her keen eyesight and knowledge of ancient runes. Brother Elias accompanied them, his saddlebags now containing not only his books but also several sketches of the three-pronged claw symbol. They rode eastward, leaving behind the recovering fortress of Blackwood, the blighted landscape gradually giving way to more fertile fields, though even here, a subtle undercurrent of unease lingered in the air. The weather was overcast, a grey sky mirroring the somber mood of their small company. As they drew closer to Eldoria, the signs of the new demonic incursion became increasingly apparent. They encountered small groups of demons, notably different from the frenzied hordes at Blackwood. These creatures moved with a more purposeful stride, their eyes burning with a cold, focused intelligence. Many bore the three-pronged claw symbol etched into their hides or crudely painted onto their weapons. Sister Lyra pointed out one such marking on the flank of a hulking, dog-like demon they had just dispatched. "The messenger spoke true," she murmured, her brow furrowed. "This mark, it feels different. More deliberate." Brother Elias, dismounting to examine the fallen creature, nodded grimly. "Indeed. It suggests a level of organization we have not encountered before on this scale." He carefully sketched the symbol in his notebook, his expression thoughtful. The air grew heavier as they approached Eldoria, the familiar stench of sulfur intensifying. A palpable sense of dark energy emanated from the direction of the ruins, a chilling premonition of the horrors that awaited them. Finally, through a break in the trees, the ancient ruins of Eldoria came into view. Once a proud city, now only crumbling walls and shattered pillars remained, scattered across a wide, desolate plain. Above the ruins, a swirling vortex of sickly green energy dominated the sky. This Hellgate, as the messenger had described, was smaller than the one at Blackwood, but its form was disturbingly stable, its emerald light burning with an intense, unwavering potency. Demons swarmed around the ruins, their numbers significant, but their behavior was markedly different from the chaos at Blackwood. They moved with a grim efficiency, some patrolling the perimeter, others seemingly engaged in some form of construction or excavation amidst the rubble. Many bore the three-pronged claw symbol prominently on their armor or banners. Sira felt a prickling sensation on her skin, a heightened awareness of the demonic energy permeating the area. This Hellgate felt different. The energy was more concentrated, more malevolent. They approached cautiously, taking cover behind a cluster of ancient, moss-covered stones on the edge of the ruined city. From their vantage point, they could observe the demonic activity more closely. "They are organized," Brother Marius observed, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "Look at them. They move with purpose. There are even overseers, directing the others." He pointed towards a group of larger, more imposing demons bearing the claw symbol, barking orders in guttural tones to the lesser creatures. Sira's gaze was drawn to the Hellgate itself. It pulsed with a steady, rhythmic beat, and the forms of demons emerging from it seemed more substantial, more powerful than those she had encountered before. She could sense a strong, focused energy emanating from the rift, a feeling that this Hellgate was not a random tier, but a deliberate gateway, firmly anchored in this world. Brother Elias, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination, pointed towards a particularly large demon overseeing a group of smaller creatures hauling stones. "Observe its armor. The claw symbol is not merely painted. It is intricately etched, almost like a mark of rank." A sense of foreboding settled over the small group. Eldoria was not just another site of demonic incursion. This felt like something more significant, a beachhead established by a more organized and powerful force. The three-pronged claw symbol, now seen everywhere, was a chilling testament to this new level of threat. Sira knew that investigating this Hellgate would be far more dangerous than their experience at Blackwood. The whispers in the ruins of Eldoria promised not just chaos, but a calculated, sinister evil. Their journey eastward had led them to the heart of a new and terrifying stage of the infernal awakening. Chapter 29, Shadows in the Shattered City. Infiltrating the ruins of Eldoria required a far more cautious approach than their headlong charge into Blackwood. The organized patrols of claw-marked demons were vigilant, their movements deliberate and their senses seemingly sharper. Sister Lyra, with her knowledge of ancient ruins, guided them through the least guarded sections, utilizing collapsed walls and overgrown pathways for cover. Sira, her senses attuned to the ebb and flow of demonic energy, moved silently at the forefront, her obsidian blades mere extensions of the shadows. They observed the demonic activity with a grim fascination. Unlike the chaotic swarms at Blackwood, the demons here operated with a disturbing efficiency. Groups of lesser demons, bearing the claw symbol on crude leather patches, hauled chunks of rubble, seemingly clearing pathways or reinforcing certain structures. Larger, more formidable demons, their armor bearing intricately etched claw marks, patrolled with a commanding presence, occasionally issuing guttural orders that were surprisingly coherent. They witnessed a group of demons gathered around a makeshift forge, hammering and shaping what looked like crude but functional weapons and armor. The level of organization was unnerving, suggesting a leadership and purpose beyond mere destruction. Sira and the Order encountered several patrols of marked demons. These encounters were brief and tense, requiring them to melt back into the shadows or engage in swift, silent takedowns. Sira noted that these demons fought with a disciplined ferocity, their attacks coordinated and their movements precise. They seemed to possess a higher level of intelligence than the average demonic spawn. Brother Elias, ever the scholar, carefully documented the architecture of the ruins, noting any modifications or structures the demons had erected. He paid particular attention to the placement of the claw symbols, observing that they seemed to be concentrated around certain key locations within the ruins, particularly near the base of the Hellgate. As they moved deeper into the shattered city, Sira felt a growing concentration of demonic energy emanating from the center of the ruins, towards a partially collapsed temple. The energy felt different here, more focused and potent, almost like a physical presence. Following Sira's instincts, they cautiously approached the temple. Peeking through a crumbling archway, they observed a disturbing scene. A group of larger, claw-marked demons were gathered around a dais, upon which rested a pulsating crystal that glowed with the same sickly green light as the Hellgate. The demons were chanting in a low, resonant tone, their voices creating a palpable vibration in the air. "A focusing ritual," Brother Elias whispered, his eyes wide with alarm. "They are channeling energy directly from the Hellgate into that crystal. It could be amplifying its power or stabilizing the rift further." Sira focused her senses on the crystal. She could feel the raw, chaotic energy of the infernal realms flowing through it, but there was also something else, a subtle undercurrent of a more controlled, almost, directed energy. It felt linked to the claw symbol, a malevolent intelligence shaping the chaotic power of the abyss. Suddenly, one of the larger, marked demons on the dais turned its head, its glowing red eyes fixing directly on their hiding place. It hadn't seen them physically, Sira was sure, but it was as if it had sensed their presence, a discordant note in their dark symphony. The demon let out a guttural roar, alerting the others. Their cover was blown. The marked demons around the dais turned their attention towards the archway, their weapons raised. The investigation had yielded a significant discovery, the focusing ritual and the crystal, but it had come at a cost. Sira and the Order were now exposed, facing a group of the more powerful and organized demons within the ruins of Eldoria. The shadows in the shattered city had offered them a glimpse into the enemy's plans, but now, they would have to fight their way out. Chapter 30, Claw and Crossfire. The guttural roar of the marked demon shattered the tense silence. The demons around the dais turned as one, their glowing red eyes fixed on Sira and the Order. They didn't charge haphazardly like the lesser spawn, instead, they moved with a chilling coordination, their barbed spears and crude axes raised in unison. Brother Marius and Sister Lyra reacted instantly, stepping forward, their blessed swords radiating a soft, holy light that pushed back the shadows of the crumbling temple. "For the light!" Brother Marius roared, charging towards the nearest demons, his sword a blur of silver. Sister Lyra moved with a more defensive stance, her blade held ready to parry incoming attacks. Sira unleashed a volley of obsidian spikes, targeting the demons closest to the dais and the pulsating green crystal. The marked demons, however, were surprisingly agile, many sidestepping or deflecting her shadowy projectiles with their weapons. Their movements were too precise, their reactions too swift for mere instinct. The chamber erupted into chaos. The clash of blessed steel against demonic weaponry echoed through the ruins, mingled with guttural snarls and the sharp hiss of Sira's shadow magic. The marked demons fought with a disciplined ferocity, their attacks coordinated, attempting to flank the Order members and isolate Sira. Sira, using her enhanced agility, darted through the melee, her shadowy blades finding purchase in the hides of the marked demons. She absorbed their essence, a colder, more calculating energy than she had felt before, enhancing her own focus and precision. Brother Elias, though not a warrior, remained near the archway, clutching a blessed amulet and chanting protective verses, a faint golden aura shimmering around him and the other Order members. His presence provided a subtle but vital layer of defense against the oppressive demonic energy. Their primary objective was the pulsating green crystal on the dais. Sira saw several of the marked demons actively guarding it, their attention unwavering. She knew that destroying it was crucial to disrupting the Hellgate's power. As she fought her way closer to the dais, she encountered a particularly formidable marked demon. It was larger than the others, its armor bearing an intricate, almost regal version of the claw symbol. It wielded a wickedly barbed greatsword, its movements powerful and precise, easily deflecting Sira's shadowy attacks. This felt like a leader, a key figure in their organized ranks. The leader demon roared, its voice deeper and more resonant than the others. It focused its attack on Sira, its greatsword whistling through the air. Sira was forced onto the defensive, her shadowy blades struggling to parry the heavy blows. She could sense a greater intelligence behind its movements, a strategic awareness that made it a far more dangerous opponent than any she had faced in Eldoria so far. Drawing upon the essence of the serpentine demon, Sira willed the shadows around her to become fluid and deceptive. She feigned an attack to the left, then shifted her form, becoming momentarily almost incorporeal, slipping past the leader demon's heavy blow. She then lashed out with a concentrated blast of pure shadow energy, targeting the demon's leg, hoping to cripple its movement. The blast hit true, and the leader demon roared in pain, stumbling slightly. Seeing her opportunity, Sira propelled herself towards the dais, her obsidian blades aimed at the pulsating green crystal. However, two more marked demons, their movements swift and coordinated, intercepted her, their barbed spears aimed at her chest. She was forced to divert her attack, narrowly avoiding their thrusts. The leader demon, recovering quickly, turned its attention back to her, its crimson eyes burning with a cold fury. The fight was reaching a fever pitch. Brother Marius was locked in a fierce struggle with several marked demons, his blessed sword stained with their ichor. Sister Lyra was using her agility to evade attacks, her blade finding weak points in their armor. But the sheer number of the marked demons guarding the crystal was a significant obstacle. Suddenly, Brother Elias, seeing Sira's struggle to reach the dais, unleashed a powerful burst of holy energy from his amulet. A blinding flash of golden light erupted, momentarily stunning the marked demons guarding the crystal, creating a brief window of opportunity. "Now, Seraphina," he cried out. Sira didn't hesitate. With a burst of speed fueled by the brute's rage, she lunged towards the dais, her obsidian blades raised high. The leader demon roared in frustration, attempting to intercept her, but it was too late. Her shadowy blades crashed down onto the pulsating green crystal. The impact shattered the crystal into 1,000 pieces, the chamber erupting in a flash of chaotic green energy that quickly dissipated. The resonant chanting of the remaining demons abruptly ceased. A wave of disorientation washed over the marked demons. Their coordinated movements faltered, their focused intelligence seemingly disrupted by the destruction of the crystal. The connection to the Hellgate, Sira instinctively felt, had been severed or severely weakened. The leader demon let out a final, furious roar, its gaze fixed on Sira with pure hatred. It lunged towards her, its great sword raised for a final, desperate attack. The chapter ended with Sira bracing herself for the blow, her own shadowy blades held ready, the outcome of the confrontation with the leader demon, and the overall impact of the crystal's destruction on the Eldoria Hellgate, hanging precariously in the balance. Chapter 31, Shattered Crystal, Severed Command. The leader demon, its crimson eyes blazing with pure hatred, lunged towards Sira, its barbed greatsword whistling through the air. Sira, bracing herself, met the attack head-on, her obsidian blades clashing against the demon's weapon. The impact sent a jolt of dark energy up her arms, but she held her ground, her determination fueled by the destruction of the crystal. The fight was a furious exchange of blows. The leader demon fought with the desperation of a cornered beast, its attacks wild and powerful. Sira, however, moved with a newfound confidence and precision, her movements fluid and her strikes calculated. She drew upon the agility of the winged demons she had absorbed, dodging the heavy swings of the great sword, and the focused precision she had gleaned from the marked demons, allowing her to anticipate its attacks. She unleashed a flurry of shadowy strikes, targeting the demon's exposed joints and the cracks in its armor. The leader demon roared in frustration, its powerful blows often missing their mark as Sira danced around it, a whirlwind of shadow and fury. Suddenly, the demon unleashed a guttural cry and a wave of dark energy pulsed outwards from its body. Sira staggered back, momentarily stunned by the force of the blast. The leader demon seized the opportunity, raising its great sword for a final, decisive strike. But Sira was ready. Drawing upon the raw power of the brute demon, she channeled the infernal essence into her arms, her shadowy blades growing longer and sharper, crackling with dark energy. As the leader demon's sword descended, Sira met it with a powerful upward strike. The obsidian blades clashed against the great sword with a deafening screech, the force of the impact shattering the demonic weapon into jagged fragments. The leader demon stared in disbelief at the broken hilt in its hand, its crimson eyes widening in shock. Before it could react, Sira lunged forward, her empowered shadowy blades piercing through the demon's thick armor, finding their mark in its chest. A black, viscous ichor erupted from the wounds, and the leader demon let out a final, agonizing shriek before its massive form collapsed to the stone floor, dissolving into a cloud of acrid smoke. The moment the leader demon fell, a palpable shift occurred within the ruined temple. The remaining marked demons, who had been fighting with such coordinated ferocity, suddenly faltered. Their movements became hesitant, their attacks less focused. The destruction of the crystal and the demise of their leader had broken their command structure. Outside the temple, a similar effect was taking place. The Hellgate above Eldoria, which had been burning with such a steady, potent light, began to flicker and shrink rapidly. Its emerald glow dimmed, and the swirling vortex became unstable, tearing apart as if its anchor had been severed. Brother Marius and Sister Lyra, who had been holding their own against the remaining marked demons, noticed the change immediately. With renewed vigor, they pressed their attack, the demoralized demons offering little resistance. Within the temple, Sira stood amidst the dissipating demonic residue, her chest heaving, her body aching, but a sense of profound relief washing over her. The organized threat at Eldoria had been broken. Sister Agnes, who had been tending to a minor wound on Brother Elias, approached Sira, her gaze filled with admiration and gratitude. "You did it, Seraphina," she said, her voice filled with awe. "You shattered their command." The Hellgate above Eldoria continued to shrink, its green light fading until it was no more than a faint shimmer in the sky before finally vanishing completely. The tier in reality had closed. A collective sigh of relief swept through the small group. The remaining marked demons, their will broken, began to scatter, fleeing into the ruins or dissolving into smoke. The threat to Eldoria, for now, was over. In the quiet aftermath, Sira had a moment to reflect on her journey. From a fearful outcast to a key player in the fight against the demonic, her infernal awakening had forced her to confront not only the horrors of the abyss but also her own potential. The organized nature of the demons at Eldoria and the symbol of the claw had revealed a larger, more sinister force at play, but for now, they had secured a significant victory. Sister Agnes gathered the group. "We will secure the ruins, ensure no more demons remain, and then send word back to Blackwood," she said. "The threat is not over, but we have struck a significant blow against it. We have learned much about our enemy, and we know now that we face a more organized darkness than we initially thought." Sira knew that their fight was far from finished. The claw symbol and the shadowy figure pulling the strings were still out there. But as she looked at the clear sky above the ruins of Eldoria, a sense of hope flickered within her. They had faced a new level of threat and emerged victorious. Whatever lay ahead, she would be ready. Her infernal awakening had just begun. Chapter 32, Echoes of the Claw. The morning sun rose over the shattered skyline of Eldoria, casting long shadows across the ruined city. The air was still, the silence broken only by the chirping of birds tentatively returning to the desolate landscape. The oppressive green glow was gone, replaced by the warm, golden light of a new day. Sira stood with Sister Agnes and Brother Elias amidst the rubble of the collapsed temple, the remnants of the shattered green crystal sparkling faintly in the sunlight. A sense of quiet accomplishment hung in the air, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous night. "The Hellgate is gone," Sister Agnes said, her gaze fixed on the clear sky above. "And the organized demonic presence, it has been broken." Brother Elias nodded, his fingers gently tracing the three-pronged claw symbol etched into a piece of demonic armor they had recovered. "But the symbol remains. And the level of organization we witnessed, it speaks of a greater intelligence at work." They discussed their findings, piecing together the fragments of information they had gathered. The focused energy of the Eldoria Hellgate, the disciplined movements of the marked demons, the focusing ritual around the crystal, all pointed towards a more strategic and coordinated effort by the forces of the abyss. The three-pronged claw, they surmised, was likely the mark of a specific demonic faction or perhaps even a single, powerful entity orchestrating these incursions. Sister Agnes looked at Sira, her expression thoughtful. "You have faced two major Hellgates now, Serafina. You possess a unique ability to combat these threats. What are your intentions now?" Cyril looked out over the ruins of Eldoria, a sense of weariness settling in her bones, but also a newfound clarity in her mind. She thought of her solitary life before the infernal awakening, the fear and isolation. She thought of the villagers of Oakhaven, their tentative gratitude. And she thought of the Order, their unwavering faith and their willingness to accept her, despite the darkness within her. "I want to understand this power," Sira said, her voice firm. "I want to learn how to control it, how to use it to protect others. And I want to find out who or what is behind these Hellgates." Sister Agnes nodded, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "Then perhaps your path lies with the Order, Serafina. We can offer you knowledge, training, and a network of allies in this fight. The road ahead will be long and dangerous, but together, we may stand a better chance against the darkness." Sira considered her words. Staying with the Order offered structure and guidance, but it also meant adhering to their strict doctrines and potentially facing continued suspicion from some members. However, she also recognized the value of their knowledge and their shared purpose. "I will stay," Sira said finally. "For now. I want to learn from you, and I want to help fight this claw." Sister Agnes placed a hand on Sira's shoulder, her touch surprisingly gentle. "Then let us begin. There is much to learn, and the echoes of this claw will undoubtedly reach us again." As they prepared to leave Eldoria, Brother Elias pointed towards a partially buried structure they hadn't yet explored. "There is one more chamber we should examine," he said, his scholarly curiosity piqued. "I sensed a faint residual energy there, different from the rest." Cautiously, they cleared away the rubble, revealing a small, hidden chamber. Inside, they found no demons, but etched into the far wall was a larger, more intricate version of the three-pronged claw symbol. Beneath it, in a language none of them recognized, were a series of glyphs that seemed to pulse with a faint, lingering dark energy. Brother Elias carefully copied the glyphs into his book, his brow furrowed in concentration. This feels like a message," he murmured. "A sign of what is to come." Sira reached out, her fingers hovering over the edged symbol. She could feel a faint resonance within her, a chilling echo of the power she had faced at Eldoria. It was a reminder that their victory was but a small skirmish in a much larger war. The force behind the claw was still out there, its plans yet unknown. As they left the ruined city of Eldoria, the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a hopeful light on the ravaged landscape. But the discovery in the hidden chamber served as a stark reminder that the infernal awakening was far from over. The echoes of the claw lingered in the air, a promise of future darkness and the challenges that lay ahead for Sira and the Order of the Sanctified. The fight had just begun. Chapter 33, Within the Hallowed Halls. Sira's arrival at the Order of the Sanctified's main headquarters, a sprawling stone monastery nestled high in the wind-swept peaks of the Dragon's Tooth Mountains, was a stark contrast to the ravaged landscapes she had grown accustomed to. The air here was clean and crisp, carrying the scent of pine and mountain wildflowers. The monastery itself was a bastion of peace and order, its hallowed halls echoing with the quiet murmur of prayers and the rhythmic clang of training swords. Her initial days were a whirlwind of new experiences. She was given simple but clean quarters, a welcome change from the rough conditions she was used to. The order's routine was structured and disciplined, marked by daily prayers, communal meals, and rigorous training sessions. Sira found herself adapting quickly, drawn to the sense of purpose and the quiet strength that permeated the monastery. Her training with the order was intense and eye-opening. While she possessed raw power and instinctive skill, they emphasized discipline, form, and the channeling of divine energy. She learned to wield a simple, unblessed sword, focusing on footwork and precision, skills that complemented her shadow-based abilities. In turn, she showed some of the younger members basic techniques for sensing and evading demonic attacks, insights gleaned from her own unique connection to the abyss. Brother Elias, now surrounded by the Order's extensive library, was in his element. He spent hours poring over ancient texts, comparing the glyphs from Eldoria with other known demonic languages and symbols. Sira often joined him, her ability to sense the residual dark energy emanating from the glyphs sometimes offering unexpected insights. They discovered that the language was ancient, predating even the oldest records of the Order, and seemed to be associated with a particularly powerful and cunning class of demons known as the Architects of Ruin, being said to orchestrate large-scale incursions into the mortal realm. Sira also delved into the Order's lore, learning about the different types of demons they had faced throughout history, their weaknesses, and the holy relics and rituals used to combat them. She discovered that the three-pronged claw symbol was indeed significant, often associated with these Architects of Ruin, and was believed to represent their dominion over destruction, deception, and despair. Her interactions with the other members of the Order were varied. Some remained wary, their faith challenged by her demonic powers. Others, particularly those who had witnessed her actions at Blackwood and Eldoria, were more accepting, seeing her as a necessary, if unconventional, ally. She found a quiet camaraderie with Sister Lyra, who shared her curiosity about the demonic and often joined her in her studies with Brother Elias. Brother Marius, ever stoic, offered her grudging respect, acknowledging her skill in battle. Despite the relative peace of the monastery, Sira couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered after their discovery at Eldoria. The organized nature of the demonic forces and the clear indication of a guiding intelligence behind them troubled her. She had nightmares, flashes of the three-pronged claw, and unsettling visions of shadowy figures manipulating the chaos. One evening, while meditating in the monastery's serene gardens, focusing on controlling the flow of infernal essence within her, Sira felt a sudden surge of dark energy, a brief but intense spike that sent shivers down her spine. It wasn't coming from within her, it felt like a distant echo, a ripple in the fabric of reality. She instinctively knew it was connected to the force behind the claw symbol, a subtle reminder that their enemy was still active, still planning. As the weeks passed, Sira felt her control over her powers growing. She could now manifest her shadowy blades with greater precision and for longer durations. She experimented with forming other shapes and constructs from the darkness, finding a surprising degree of versatility in her abilities. She also learned to better shield her mind from the corrupting influences of the demonic energy, thanks to Brother Elias's guidance and her own growing inner strength. Life within the hallowed halls of the Order was a journey of learning and adaptation. Sira was no longer the isolated outcast of Oakhaven. She had found a purpose, a community, and a path forward in the fight against the encroaching darkness. But the whispers in the ruins of Eldoria, the mark of the claw, and the distant surge of dark energy served as a constant reminder that the true battle had only just begun, and the Architects of Ruin were still at large, their sinister plans yet to be fully revealed. Chapter 34, The Obsidian Quill. The tranquility of the Dragon's Tooth Monastery was shattered one cold morning by the frantic arrival of a messenger, his face pale and his breath coming in ragged gasps. He bore a missive sealed with a distinctive mark, not the three-pronged claw they had come to recognize, but a single, stylized obsidian quill. This symbol, Brother Elias explained, was associated with a particularly cunning and manipulative architect of ruin known only as the Scribe, a demon said to weave intricate plots and corrupt mortal institutions from within. The missive, addressed directly to Sister Agnes, spoke of a growing darkness plaguing the nearby city of Viridian. Whispers of strange cults, sudden outbreaks of violence, and a palpable increase in despair had reached the Order. The Scribe's influence, it seemed, was taking root in the mortal realm in a subtle but insidious way. The news sent a ripple of concern through the monastery. Direct demonic incursions were one threat, but the subtle corruption of mortal society by a cunning architect of ruin was another, perhaps even more dangerous. Sister Agnes immediately convened a council of the senior members of the order, including Sira and brother Elias. After much deliberation, they decided that a small, discreet team should be sent to Viridian to investigate. Sira, with her ability to sense demonic influence, was deemed crucial to the mission. Brother Elias, with his knowledge of demonic lore and the scribe's reputation for subtlety, would also accompany her. Sister Lyra, with her sharp eyes and knowledge of local customs, rounded out the team. Preparations for the journey began immediately. Sira practiced focusing her senses, trying to attune herself to the subtle signs of demonic corruption that might be present in a bustling city. Brother Elias gathered texts related to the scribe, hoping to find clues to its methods and weaknesses. Sister Lyra prepared disguises and gathered information about Viridian's current state. Before they departed, Sister Agnes gave Sira a small, intricately carved wooden pendant blessed by the order's high priestess. "This will offer you some protection against subtle demonic influences, Serafina," she said, her gaze earnest. "The scribe is a master of deception. Trust your instincts, and be wary of appearances." Their journey to Viridian took them several days. As they approached the city, they could already sense a shift in the atmosphere. The vibrant energy they expected from a major trade hub felt muted, replaced by a subtle undercurrent of tension and unease. The faces of the people they passed on the road seemed drawn and worried. Upon entering Viridian, they found a city struggling under a weight it couldn't quite name. The once lively marketplaces felt subdued, the laughter of children was scarce, and the guards patrolling the streets seemed unusually grim. Whispers of strange rituals conducted in secret, of respected figures suddenly turning cruel and irrational, were commonplace. Sira felt a subtle, insidious darkness clinging to the city, a pervasive sense of despair that seemed to seep into the very stones. It wasn't the raw, chaotic energy of a hellgate, but something colder, more calculating, like a creeping poison. Their investigation began subtly. Sister Lyra, using her disguise as a traveling merchant, gathered information from the locals, piecing together the fragmented rumors and whispers. Brother Elias, disguised as a scholar, frequented the city's libraries and archives, searching for any mention of unusual cults or unexplained events. Sira, meanwhile, moved through the city, her senses constantly alert. She could feel faint traces of demonic energy clinging to certain individuals and locations: a respected city elder who now ruled with an iron fist, a once reputable merchant whose deals had become ruthlessly exploitative, a seemingly abandoned temple on the outskirts of the city where strange chanting could be heard at night. The scribe's influence was like an invisible web, subtly corrupting the fabric of Viridian. Sira knew they had to find the source of this insidious darkness before it consumed the entire city. The obsidian quill had led them to a new kind of threat, one that required not brute force, but cunning, observation, and a keen understanding of the subtle ways in which evil could take root in the hearts of mortals. Their mission in Viridian had just begun, and the shadows they were about to uncover were far more intricate and deceptive than any they had encountered before. Chapter 35, The Serpent's Quill. Sira, Sister Lyra, and Brother Elias followed their separate leads, each delving deeper into the subtle darkness that clung to Viridian. Sister Lyra, under the guise of a cloth merchant, spent her days in the market square, her keen eyes observing the interactions between the citizens. She noted the unusual prevalence of suspicion and distrust, the quickness to anger, and the almost palpable sense of hopelessness that seemed to weigh down the populace. She learned of a once beloved magistrate, Lord Elmsworth, who had recently become withdrawn and paranoid, issuing increasingly harsh and erratic decrees. Brother Elias, meanwhile, spent his time in the city's grand library, poring over local histories and records. He discovered mentions of an ancient, forgotten temple dedicated to a shadowy deity that had once stood on the outskirts of Viridian, the same abandoned temple Sira had sensed a dark energy emanating from. He also found references to a peculiar symbol resembling a serpent coiled around a quill, often associated with periods of social unrest and subtle manipulation in Viridian's past. This felt distinctly different from the three-pronged claw. Sira, guided by her ability to sense demonic influence, focused her attention on Lord Elmsworth and the abandoned temple. The energy around the magistrate felt cold and subtly controlling, like a puppet master's strings were being gently tugged. The temple, located in a secluded grove beyond the city walls, pulsed with a more potent, though still carefully concealed, darkness. One evening, as Sira approached the temple under the cover of twilight, she encountered resistance. Two figures, their eyes glazed over and bearing a subtle mark on their wrists resembling a stylized quill, emerged from the shadows. They moved with an unnatural stillness, their intent clear. Sira engaged them, her shadowy blades easily dispatching the possessed individuals. Their essence felt tainted, subtly corrupted by a manipulative influence. Inside the temple, the air was heavy with a stagnant, oppressive energy. She found evidence of recent rituals, remnants of black candles, strange herbs scattered across the floor, and markings on the walls that resonated with the serpent and quill symbol Brother Elias had discovered. In the center of the temple, Sira sensed a focal point of dark energy, a subtle hum that seemed to vibrate through the very stones. It felt connected to a hidden chamber beneath the main floor. Returning to the city, Sira shared her findings with Sister Lyra and Brother Elias. The serpent and quill symbol, the corrupted magistrate, and the ritualistic activity in the abandoned temple painted a clearer picture of the scribe's methods. It wasn't about brute force or open invasion, it was about subtle manipulation, the slow poisoning of the city's heart. Their investigation led them to believe that Lord Elmsworth was the key. His recent erratic behavior and the subtle demonic influence Sira had sensed around him suggested he was being directly controlled or heavily influenced by the scribe. If they could reach him, they might be able to disrupt the scribe's hold on Viridian. Under the cover of darkness, they infiltrated the magistrate's heavily guarded manor. Sister Lyra, using her knowledge of the city's layout, guided them through secret passages and hidden entrances. Sira, her senses on high alert, detected the subtle presence of lesser demons subtly guarding the manor, their forms almost invisible in the shadows. They finally reached Lord Elmsworth's private study. The door was locked, but Brother Marius, who had joined them after receiving their urgent message, easily forced it open. Inside, they found the magistrate hunched over a desk, his quill scratching furiously across a parchment. The air in the room felt thick with a palpable sense of despair and a subtle, controlling influence. As they entered, Lord Elmsworth looked up, his eyes devoid of their former warmth, replaced by a cold, calculating gaze. On the parchment before him, Sira saw not official decrees, but intricate, looping script surrounding a prominent depiction of the serpent coiled around a quill. The scribe was using the magistrate as its instrument, its influence flowing through his words and actions, subtly poisoning the city from its very core. The confrontation had begun. Chapter 36, The Quill of Corruption. Lord Elmsworth's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto Sira, Sister Lyra, Brother Marius, and Brother Elias. The warmth that once characterized his features was gone, replaced by a chillingly vacant stare that held a flicker of something cold and calculating. A thin smile stretched across his lips, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Intruders," he hissed, his voice carrying a subtle, unnatural resonance. "The scribe anticipated your arrival." The quill in his hand twitched, as if imbued with a life of its own. Before they could react, Lord Elmsworth lunged, the sharpened tip of his quill aimed directly at Brother Elias. The scholar, though startled, managed to sidestep the clumsy attack. Brother Marius moved swiftly, placing himself between the magistrate and the others, his blessed sword drawn. "Lord Elmsworth, you are under the influence of a demon," Brother Marius declared, his voice firm. "Release yourself." The magistrate merely chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Influence? No, I am enlightened. The scribe has shown me the true nature of Viridian, the weakness and the corruption that festers beneath the surface. I am merely pruning the rot." As he spoke, the quill in his hand began to glow with a faint, obsidian light. The air in the room grew heavy, and a subtle wave of despair washed over Sira, a feeling of utter hopelessness trying to suffocate her will. This was the scribe's influence, a psychic assault aimed at breaking their spirits. Brother Elias, clutching his blessed amulet, began to chant protective verses, his voice a steady beacon against the encroaching darkness. Sister Lyra moved to flank the magistrate, her dagger held ready. Sira focused her inner strength, pushing back against the wave of despair. She could sense the scribe's presence, a cold, calculating intelligence lurking just beneath the surface of Lord Elmsworth's consciousness. It was trying to sow discord, to break their unity. The magistrate, his movements surprisingly agile for his age, lunged again, the glowing quill now moving with unnatural speed. Brother Marius parried his attacks, the clash of mundane metal against the demonically charged quill sending sparks flying. "We must break the scribe's hold!" Sister Lyra exclaimed, narrowly avoiding a swipe from the quill. "It's using him as a conduit." Sierra realized they couldn't simply fight Lord Elmsworth, they needed to sever the connection between him and the architect of ruin. She focused her senses, trying to pinpoint the source of the controlling influence. She could feel a faint, shadowy thread emanating from the quill, linking the magistrate to a deeper, darker presence. "Brother Elias," Sierra called out, "do you know of any rituals to sever demonic bindings?" Brother Elias, still chanting, shook his head. "The scribe's methods are often subtle, more akin to psychic manipulation than outright binding. We need to disrupt its influence directly." Seeing an opportunity, Sierra unleashed a focused blast of shadow energy, not at Lord Elmsworth himself, but at the glowing quill in his hand. The obsidian light flickered violently as the blast struck, and the magistrate cried out, clutching his hand. The unnatural resonance in his voice seemed to lessen. For a moment, a flicker of the old Lord Elmsworth returned to his eyes, a flash of confusion and pain. What am I doing?" he stammered, his grip on the quill loosening. But the scribe's hold was strong. The vacant stare returned, and the quill began to glow even brighter. The wave of despair intensified, and Sierra felt her own resolve waver. Suddenly, Sister Lyra lunged forward, her dagger flashing in the dim light. She didn't attack Lord Elmsworth, instead, she struck the parchment on the desk, the one covered in the looping script and the serpent and quill symbol. The parchment burst into flames, the unnatural fire burning with an eerie green light. As the parchment burned, Lord Elmsworth screamed, clutching his head. The glowing quill fell from his grasp and clattered to the floor, its obsidian light fading. The oppressive atmosphere in the room began to dissipate, and the wave of despair receded. The magistrate slumped against his desk, his breathing ragged. The vacant stare in his eyes began to clear, replaced by confusion and a dawning horror. But the scribe was not yet defeated. As its hold on Lord Elmsworth weakened, its presence in the room intensified. The shadows in the corners of the study seemed to deepen and writhe, and a cold, whispering voice echoed in their minds, laced with malice and cunning. "You cannot stop me," the voice hissed. "My influence has already taken root. Viridian will fall." The air grew colder, and a shadowy figure began to coalesce in the corner of the room, its form vaguely humanoid but distorted, with long, spindly fingers ending in sharp, quill-like points. The scribe was manifesting, its subtle manipulation giving way to a more direct, though still ethereal, presence. The confrontation had reached its climax. They had broken the scribe's hold on Lord Elmsworth, but now they faced the architect of ruin itself, its shadowy form a testament to its insidious power. The battle for Viridian was far from over. Chapter 37, Ink and Shadow, Word and Light. The scribe's manifested form was unsettlingly ephemeral, a gaunt figure wreathed in swirling shadows, its long, spindly fingers twitching like the tips of obsidian quills. Its voice, though a mere whisper in their minds, carried a weight of ancient malice and cunning, each syllable laced with subtle suggestions of doubt and despair. "Foolish mortals," it hissed, its form flickering like a poorly drawn sketch. "You cannot unravel the tapestry I have woven. The seeds of discord are sown. Viridian will reap a harvest of ruin." The scribe's primary weapon was not brute force, but manipulation. It lashed out with psychic tendrils, attempting to twist their thoughts, to turn them against each other. Sierra felt a sudden surge of suspicion towards Brother Marius, a fleeting thought that he might be secretly judging her demonic nature. She fought back, focusing on the bond they had forged in battle, recognizing the insidious nature of the attack. Brother Marius, his face strained, gripped his blessed sword tightly, muttering prayers under his breath. Sister Lyra's eyes darted nervously around the room, as if she were seeing phantom figures lurking in the shadows, a testament to the scribe's ability to sow fear and paranoia. Brother Elias, his voice trembling slightly but filled with conviction, recited passages from the Order's sacred texts, the holy words acting as a shield against the scribe's mental assault. The lies of the abyss hold no power against the truth of the light, he declared. Sira realized that a direct physical confrontation might be futile against such an ethereal foe. She needed to fight the scribe on its own terms, to use its own manipulative tactics against it. Focusing her senses, she delved into the lingering traces of demonic energy in the room, trying to understand the scribe's connection to Viridian. She sensed a network of subtle threads, like invisible ink, linking the scribe's essence to the despair and negative emotions that permeated the city. Drawing upon the essence of the serpentine demon, with its inherent cunning and ability to weave illusions, Sira began to subtly manipulate the shadows in the room. She didn't attack directly, but instead created fleeting, distorted images in the periphery of their vision, whispers in the corners of their minds, designed to confuse and disorient the scribe. The scribe's shadowy form flickered more erratically, its mental attacks becoming less focused. "What trickery is this?" it hissed, its ethereal voice laced with annoyance. Brother Elias, recognizing Sira's strategy, spoke aloud, his words carefully chosen. "The scribe thrives on deception and despair. We will offer it only truth and hope. Viridian will not succumb to your poison." He began to speak of the city's resilience, of the good deeds of its citizens, actively countering the scribe's narrative of ruin. Sister Lyra, regaining her composure, joined in, recounting stories of Viridian's past triumphs over adversity, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. Their combined words, imbued with faith and hope, began to push back against the scribe's influence, like light dispelling darkness. Sira, sensing the scribe's weakening grip on their minds, focused her power on the shadowy threads she had detected. She visualized herself severing these connections, cutting the invisible ink that bound the scribe to Viridian's despair. The air in the room crackled with dark energy as she mentally tore at these tethers. The scribe shrieked, its shadowy form convulsing. "You cannot sever my connection. It is woven into the very fabric of this city." But Sira could feel its power waning. The whispers in their minds became fainter, less insidious. The oppressive atmosphere in the room began to lift. Brother Marius, seeing the scribe's weakened state, raised his blessed sword high. "In the name of the light, be banished," he roared, bringing the holy blade down in a swift, decisive arc. The blessed steel passed through the scribe's ethereal form, but a searing light erupted from the blade, causing the shadowy figure to recoil in agony. The scribe shrieked again, its form dissolving into wisps of black smoke that dissipated into nothingness. Silence descended upon Lord Elmsworth's study. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by a sense of relief and exhaustion. The magistrate slumped further against his desk, his breathing shallow but more natural. The vacant stare in his eyes had finally vanished, replaced by a dazed confusion. In the city outside, a subtle shift occurred. The pervasive sense of despair that had clung to Viridian began to lift, like a heavy fog slowly dissipating under the morning sun. People felt a flicker of hope rekindle within them, a sense of clarity returning to their thoughts. Sister Agnes, who had arrived with reinforcements after receiving Brother Marius's urgent message, entered the study. She surveyed the scene, her gaze resting on the unconscious Lord Elmsworth and the weary but victorious faces of Sira and her companions. "The scribe's influence is broken," Sister Agnes declared, a sense of relief in her voice. "Viridian is safe, for now." The battle against the architect of ruin had been different, a subtle war waged in the minds and hearts of mortals. Sira had learned that not all demonic threats could be defeated with brute force. Sometimes, cunning, knowledge, and the unwavering strength of the human spirit were the most potent weapons. The obsidian quill had been silenced, but the memory of the scribe's insidious influence served as a stark reminder of the many forms the encroaching darkness could take. Their vigilance would need to extend beyond the clash of steel and the roar of demons to the subtle whispers that sought to corrupt the very soul of the mortal realm. Chapter 38, The Cleansing Dawn. The dawn that broke over Viridian was unlike any the city had seen in weeks. The oppressive weight that had clung to the air had lifted, replaced by a sense of lightness and renewal. The marketplaces buzzed with a renewed energy, laughter echoed through the streets once more, and the guards patrolled with a newfound confidence in their step. The subtle poison of the scribe had begun to recede, leaving behind a city slowly healing from an unseen wound. Lord Elmsworth awoke in his study, his mind clouded with confusion and a lingering sense of unease. He had fragmented memories of dark whispers and a chilling compulsion to write, but the specifics eluded him. Sister Agnes, with gentle words and the Order's healing touch, helped him understand the insidious influence he had been under. Shame and gratitude warred on his face as he learned how close Viridian had come to succumbing to the scribe's subtle corruption. He pledged to dedicate himself to his city's recovery, his resolve strengthened by his ordeal. Sira stood on a balcony overlooking the recovering city, the morning sun warm on her face. Her encounter with the scribe had been unlike any battle she had fought before. There were no physical wounds to show for it, yet the psychic assault had been deeply unsettling, a reminder that the demonic forces could attack in ways far more insidious than brute force. She had learned that manipulation and despair could be as potent a weapon as any blade or fiery blast. Sister Agnes joined her, her gaze also fixed on the bustling city below. Viridian owes you a great debt, Serafina. You faced a cunning enemy, one that could have unraveled this city from within, and you prevailed. It was different, Sira admitted. The darkness wasn't something I could just fight. It was like trying to grasp smoke. Indeed, Sister Agnes replied. The architects of ruin are masters of such tactics. They seek to corrupt and control, to sow chaos without ever revealing their true hand. Your ability to sense their presence, even in such a subtle form, proved invaluable. They discussed the scribe's defeat, the way the combined strength of their faith, their knowledge, and Sira's unique abilities had managed to banish the architect of ruin. Brother Elias theorized that the scribe, being a creature of influence and manipulation, was weakened by the open display of hope and truth, its power dissolving in the face of genuine resilience. Sira's decision to stay with the Order felt more certain now. Her experiences in Viridian had highlighted the diverse nature of the threats they faced and the importance of understanding the enemy's tactics. The Order offered her the knowledge and the support she needed to hone her abilities and to learn how to combat these more subtle forms of demonic influence. As they prepared to depart Viridian, a messenger arrived bearing a coded scroll for Sister Agnes. After deciphering it, her expression grew serious. There have been reports of unusual demonic activity in the ancient forests of Whisperwood, further to the north, she announced. The descriptions, they match those associated with another architect of ruin, one known for its control over beasts and the corruption of nature. A sense of grim determination settled over Sira. The defeat of the scribe had been a victory, but the threat of the architects of ruin was clearly far from over. Each encounter offered new challenges and new insights into the vast and varied forces of the infernal realms. Sister Agnes turned to Sira. Whisperwood is a wild and dangerous place. This new architect, if the reports are true, could pose a significant threat to the surrounding settlements. Will you join us, Serafina? Sira met her gaze, her own resolve unwavering. She had tasted the satisfaction of protecting the innocent, of pushing back the darkness. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril, but she knew she couldn't turn away. Her infernal awakening had given her a purpose, and she would follow it wherever it might lead. Yes, Sister Agnes, Sira replied, her voice firm. Let us go to Whisperwood. The cleansing dawn over Viridian marked the end of one battle, but it also heralded the beginning of another. The whispers of the architects of ruin echoed across Ethel, and Sira, armed with her unique powers and the support of the Order of the Sanctified, was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead in the shadowed depths of Whisperwood. The fight continued. Chapter 39, Into the Tangled Wood. The journey to Whisperwood was a departure from the open landscapes they had traversed before. Leaving behind the rolling hills and plains, Sira, Sister Agnes, Brother Elias, Sister Lyra, and Brother Marius entered a realm of ancient trees, their gnarled branches reaching skyward like skeletal fingers, their dense canopies casting the forest floor in perpetual twilight. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and an undercurrent of something else, something subtly wrong. Whisperwood lived up to its name. A constant rustling of leaves, even when there was no discernible breeze, created an eerie susurrus that seemed to carry faint, unintelligible whispers on the wind. The usual sounds of the forest, bird song, the scampering of small creatures, were strangely muted, replaced by an unnerving stillness. As they ventured deeper, the signs of the architect of ruin's influence became more pronounced. Patches of vibrant green moss were now a sickly grey, their texture slimy and unnatural. Flowers that should have been blooming in the late autumn were withered and black, their petals curled inward as if in silent agony. The trees themselves seemed twisted and contorted, their bark bearing strange, unnatural growths that pulsed with a faint, dark energy. Brother Elias, ever observant, pointed to a cluster of unusually aggressive squirrels, their eyes glowing with a faint red light as they chattered menacingly and threw sharp nuts at the passing travelers. The reports were accurate, he murmured, his brow furrowed. The natural world here is being corrupted. They encountered larger creatures too, a deer with unnaturally sharp antlers and a vacant, malevolent stare, and a pack of wolves whose howls carried a chilling, discordant tone that echoed through the silent woods. These creatures, though still recognizably of the forest, possessed a subtle but disturbing taint, a hint of demonic influence in their eyes and movements. Sister Agnes, her hand resting on the hilt of her blessed sword, kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. This architect is weaving a subtle web of corruption, she observed. It is twisting the very essence of this place. Sira, her senses attuned to the demonic energies, felt a pervasive darkness clinging to the forest, a subtle but insistent pressure that seemed to emanate from a central point deeper within. It wasn't the raw, chaotic energy of a hellgate, nor the cold manipulation of the scribe, but something wilder, more primal, a corruption that seeped into the very lifeblood of the forest. Their investigation led them along overgrown game trails and through tangled thickets, following the increasing signs of unnatural decay and the unsettling behavior of the wildlife. They discovered areas where the very earth seemed blighted, the soil black and barren, devoid of any signs of life. Strange, thorny vines, pulsing with dark energy, snaked across the forest floor, their thorns sharp as needles. As they pressed further, the whispers on the wind seemed to grow stronger, coalescing into faint, guttural murmurs that spoke of decay and domination. The feeling of a central, powerful demonic presence intensified, drawing them deeper into the heart of Whisperwood. Finally, after a day of arduous travel, they reached a clearing. In the center stood an ancient grove of towering oak trees, their branches intertwined to form a natural cathedral. But this place was far from sacred. The trees were twisted and scarred, their leaves a sickly yellow. A palpable aura of dark energy emanated from the grove, and the whispers on the wind were now a chorus of menacing voices. Within the grove, they saw movement. Grotesque, corrupted beasts, their forms twisted and amplified by demonic energy, prowled amongst the blighted trees. At the heart of the grove, bathed in an unnatural green light that filtered through the corrupted canopy, stood a figure. It was humanoid in shape, but its form was warped and bestial, wreathed in shadow and surrounded by a pack of monstrous, corrupted wolves. This was undoubtedly the architect of ruin of Whisperwood, and the confrontation was imminent. The tangled wood had led them to the heart of its corrupted domain. Chapter 40, Beast and Blight. The figure at the heart of the blighted grove was a grotesque parody of nature. Its humanoid form was twisted, with elongated limbs ending in razor-sharp claws, and its head was a nightmarish fusion of wolf and stag, complete with jagged antlers that seemed to writhe with dark energy. Matted fur, the color of dead leaves, covered its body, and its eyes glowed with the same malevolent red as the corrupted beasts that surrounded it. An aura of decay and unnatural growth emanated from it, the very air around it feeling heavy and tainted. Without a word, the architect of ruin of Whisperwood raised a clawed hand, and the monstrous wolves surrounding it lunged forward, their snarls echoing with a primal ferocity. These were not ordinary wolves, their bodies were bloated and distorted, their teeth elongated into cruel fangs, and patches of their fur had fallen away, revealing raw, festering flesh. Their eyes burned with an unholy light, and a faint green ichor dripped from their jaws. Sister Agnes and Brother Marius stepped forward, their blessed swords held high, meeting the charge of the corrupted beasts head-on. Their blades flashed in the dim, green-tinged light, cleaving through corrupted flesh and bone. But the wolves were relentless, their movements unnaturally swift and their attacks coordinated, as if directed by a single, malevolent will. Sister Lyra, nimble and quick, moved through the fray, her silver dagger finding weak points in the beasts' distorted forms. Brother Elias, though not a warrior, held aloft a blessed staff, chanting protective verses that seemed to momentarily repel the encroaching darkness and disorient the corrupted creatures nearest him. Cyril launched herself into the air, her obsidian wings beating powerfully. From above, she rained down a volley of shadowy spikes, targeting the more heavily corrupted wolves. The spikes tore through their tainted hides, causing them to shriek in pain and dissolve into acrid smoke. The Architect of Ruin remained at the center of the grove, its glowing red eyes fixed on Sira, a silent command seemingly flowing from it to its corrupted pack. The wolves pressed their attack with renewed ferocity, their movements becoming even more coordinated, attempting to pull Sira down from the air. One particularly large and monstrous wolf, its body swollen to twice its natural size, leaped towards Sira, its jaws wide, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Sira narrowly avoided its attack, feeling the rush of fetid breath as it passed beneath her. She retaliated with a blast of pure shadow energy, hitting the beast squarely in its chest. The wolf shrieked, its corrupted flesh tearing apart, and it crashed to the ground, dissolving into a pool of black ichor. As Sira dealt with the aerial threat, Sister Agnes and Brother Marius fought back to back, their blessed swords a whirlwind of silver against the relentless onslaught of corrupted wolves. Yet, for every beast they felled, another seemed to rise to take its place. The Architect's control over the corrupted wildlife was absolute. Seeing the stalemate, Sira decided to target the Architect directly. She descended towards the center of the grove, her obsidian blades crackling with dark energy. But as she approached, the very trees around her seemed to come alive. Their branches twisted and contorted, forming thorny barriers, and thick, corrupted vines snaked out from the ground, attempting to ensnare her. The Architect of Ruin raised its clawed hands, and a wave of dark energy surged through the grove, causing the blighted vegetation to grow at an alarming rate, further hindering Sira's approach. The whispers on the wind intensified, becoming a chorus of guttural commands that seemed to emanate from the Architect itself. Realizing she couldn't reach the Architect directly while it controlled the environment and its corrupted beasts so effectively, Sira shifted her tactics. She focused on disrupting the Architect's control, targeting the corrupted wolves closest to it. By severing the connection between the Architect and its pack, she hoped to create an opening. She unleashed a series of focused shadow blasts, striking down the wolves nearest the central figure. Each time a beast fell, the Architect let out a low, guttural growl, its red eyes burning with increasing fury. Its control, though strong, seemed to waver momentarily with each loss. Suddenly, the Architect of Ruin let out a deafening roar, a sound that echoed through the entire forest. The remaining corrupted beasts redoubled their attacks, their movements becoming even more frantic and desperate. The very air around the Architect crackled with dark energy, and the unnatural green light in the grove intensified. It was clear that the Architect was growing desperate, preparing to unleash its full power. The initial confrontation had been fierce, but the true battle for Whisperwood had only just begun. Chapter 41, Heart of the Blight. The Architect of Ruin's roar was a primal sound, a symphony of decay and domination that resonated through the very heart of Whisperwood. In response, the corrupted grove pulsed with an intensified dark energy. The blighted trees writhed, their thorny branches extending like grasping claws, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to churn with unnatural growth. More monstrous, corrupted beasts emerged from the shadows, their forms even more grotesque and powerful than before, hulking bears with bone spurs erupting from their backs, and swift, silent panthers with eyes that glowed with an inner, sickly green light. The Architect itself began to transform, its warped humanoid form shifting and growing, its limbs elongating further, its fur thickening and becoming matted with thorns and decaying leaves. The stag wolf head grew larger, its antlers now crackling with arcs of dark energy. It became a true embodiment of the forest's corruption, a terrifying fusion of beast and blight. Sister Agnes and Brother Marius stood firm, their blessed swords a beacon of light against the encroaching darkness. They fought with unwavering faith and skill, cutting down the monstrous beasts that swarmed them. But their numbers seemed endless, their ferocity amplified by the Architect's will. Sister Lyra moved like a phantom through the chaos, her silver dagger finding vulnerable spots in the corrupted creatures, her agility allowing her to evade their savage attacks. Brother Elias continued his protective chants, the holy energy emanating from him creating a small but vital sanctuary in the heart of the blighted grove. Sira, realizing the futility of simply battling the endless tide of corrupted beasts, focused her attention on the Architect. It was the heart of the blight, the source of the corruption. She needed to reach it. Drawing upon the essence of the greater demon from Blackwood, Sira willed her shadow to solidify, forming into a pair of massive, clawed hands that ripped through the thorny barriers erected by the architect. She propelled herself forward, her obsidian wings beating with powerful strokes, dodging the snapping jaws of the monstrous panthers that leaped towards her. The architect, now a towering figure of twisted nature, roared again, and the very ground beneath Sira's feet erupted in a tangle of thorny vines, attempting to ensnare her. She reacted instantly, channeling the agility of the winged demons, twisting and turning in the air to avoid the grasping tendrils. She unleashed blasts of pure shadow energy at the architect, but the corrupted creature seemed to absorb the darkness, its form only momentarily flickering before its malevolent red eyes fixed on her once more. It raised its clawed hands, and the surrounding corrupted beasts redoubled their attacks, creating a living shield around their master. Sira sensed a different kind of energy emanating from the architect, a primal connection to the corrupted life around it. She focused her will, drawing upon the essence of the serpentine demon, seeking to understand and potentially disrupt this connection. She reached out with her senses, not with force, but with a subtle probing, trying to find the source of the corruption within the architect itself. She sensed a core of darkness within the twisted form, a pulsating heart of blight that seemed to radiate the corrupting influence outwards. It was this heart she needed to target. Signaling to Sister Agnes and Brother Marius with a telepathic burst of intent, Sira created a diversion, unleashing a massive wave of shadow tendrils that lashed out at the surrounding beasts, momentarily drawing their attention. In that instant, Sister Agnes and Brother Marius surged forward, their blessed swords cutting a path through the momentarily distracted creatures. As they created an opening, Sira plunged downwards, her obsidian blades aimed directly at the architect's chest, towards the pulsating core of darkness she had sensed. The corrupted creature roared in fury, attempting to swat her away with its massive claws, but Sira was too quick. Her shadowy blades pierced through the matted fur and corrupted flesh, finding their mark in the blighted heart within. A wave of pure, agonizing energy erupted from the architect, causing its twisted form to convulse violently. The unnatural green light in the grove flickered and died, and the corrupted beasts around them let out whimpering cries, their aggressive energy suddenly dissipating. The architect of ruin let out a final, chilling shriek, its towering form beginning to wither and crumble, the corrupted vegetation around it starting to turn brown and lifeless. The whispers on the wind faded into silence. The heart of the blight had been pierced. The corrupted beasts, no longer under the architect's control, scattered and fled into the depths of Whisperwood, their unnatural energy dissipating. The blighted grove began to slowly revert to its natural state, the twisted branches straightening, the sickly colors fading. Cyril landed softly on the ground, her body trembling with exhaustion, but a sense of profound relief washing over her. The primal darkness that had gripped Whisperwood had been vanquished. The architect of ruin was no more. Chapter 42, The Forest Awakens. The silence that descended upon the blighted grove after the architect's demise was profound, a stark contrast to the cacophony of corrupted beasts and malevolent whispers that had filled the air moments before. Slowly, tentatively, the natural sounds of the forest began to return. Birdsong, hesitant at first, then growing in confidence, echoed through the trees. The rustling of leaves now carried the gentle whisper of a breeze, no longer the ominous susurrus of dark energy. The unnatural green light that had permeated the grove faded completely, replaced by the soft, dappled sunlight filtering through the recovering canopy. The blighted trees seemed to sigh, their twisted branches slowly straightening, the sickly yellow of their leaves beginning to regain a healthier hue. The thorny vines that had snaked across the forest floor withered and crumbled into dust. Sister Agnes and Brother Marius sheathed their blessed swords, their faces etched with exhaustion but also relief. Sister Lyra tended to a minor scratch on her arm, while Brother Elias offered a quiet prayer of thanks, his gaze fixed on the slowly healing grove. Sira stood amidst the remnants of the architect's corrupted form, a sense of awe mixed with a lingering unease washing over her. The primal nature of this enemy, its ability to twist and corrupt the very essence of life, had been unlike anything she had encountered before. The cold, calculating manipulation of the scribe felt almost civilized in comparison to the raw, untamed blight of Whisperwood's architect. The forest, its healing, Sister Lyra murmured, her eyes wide with wonder as she watched a patch of grey moss slowly turn back to its vibrant green. Brother Elias nodded. The architect's influence was a wound upon the natural world. With its passing, the inherent resilience of life is reasserting itself. Sira felt a connection to this recovery, a sense that the balance of the forest was slowly being restored. It was a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness of all things, and the devastating impact even a single powerful entity could have on the delicate harmony of nature. As they rested and allowed the forest to begin its healing, a faint melody drifted through the trees, a pure, clear sound unlike any they had heard in Whisperwood before. Following the sound, they discovered a small stream, its water now running clear and sparkling, where moments ago it had been stagnant and murky. A small, uncorrupted bird with vibrant blue plumage bathed in the stream, its song filling the air with a melody of hope. Despite the clear signs of recovery, a lingering unease settled in Sira's heart. The defeat of two architects of ruin in relatively quick succession suggested a larger, more coordinated effort by the forces of the abyss. These were not random incursions, they were targeted attacks, each with its own distinct flavor of corruption. As they prepared to leave Whisperwood, Sister Agnes noticed a peculiar marking on the trunk of one of the ancient oak trees at the edge of the grove. It was the three-pronged claw symbol, etched deep into the bark, but it was overlaid with a new mark, a stylized, thorny vine wrapped around the claw. It was a chilling reminder that even in defeat, the architects of ruin were connected, their influence perhaps even overlapping. They are not acting in isolation, Sister Agnes said, tracing the intertwined symbols with a gloved finger. Their goals are intertwined, their methods varied, but their ultimate purpose remains the same, to bring ruin to Ethel. The discovery added a new layer of complexity to their understanding of the demonic threat. The architects of ruin were not just individual entities, they seemed to be part of a larger, coordinated strategy. As they finally emerged from the depths of Whisperwood, the setting sun casting long shadows behind them, Sira knew that their journey was far from over. The forest was healing, but the wider world remained vulnerable. The defeat of the scribe and the architect of the blight were victories, but they were also warnings of the diverse and insidious forms the infernal awakening could take. Armed with new knowledge and a deeper understanding of the enemy, Sira and the Order of the Sanctified set their sights on the horizon, ready to face whatever darkness the coming days might bring. The whispers of the architects of ruin echoed across the land, and the fight for Ethel continued. Chapter 43, Whispers from the Obsidian Spire. The return to the Dragon's Tooth Monastery was a welcome respite after the arduous journey through Whisperwood. The familiar routines and the quiet strength of the order provided a sense of grounding after facing the primal corruption of the forest. Sira spent time honing her control over her powers, the encounter with the nature-twisting architect having revealed new nuances in the way demonic energy could manifest. Brother Elias, his brow furrowed in concentration, dedicated himself to deciphering the intertwined claw and thorny vine symbols they had discovered. He spent days poring over ancient texts, consulting with the monastery's elder scholars, and even attempting to replicate the symbols in various ritualistic contexts, hoping to glean some understanding of their connection. He eventually discovered that the thorny vine, when intertwined with the claw, was often associated with a third architect of ruin, one whispered to hold sway over the very elements and to command storms and natural disasters. This entity was sometimes referred to as the Tempest or the Shaper of Storms. One evening, as a fierce blizzard raged outside, rattling the monastery's sturdy stone walls, Sira experienced a vivid and disturbing vision. She saw a towering obsidian spire piercing a storm-racked sky, lightning lashing around it like angry serpents. From the spire, a figure wreathed in swirling clouds and crackling energy unleashed a torrent of elemental fury upon a vast, desolate landscape. The vision was fleeting but left her with a profound sense of dread and an instinctive understanding that this was connected to the third architect, the Tempest. She immediately shared her vision with Sister Agnes and Brother Elias. Her description of the obsidian spire resonated with fragmented passages in the Order's ancient texts, hinting at a location known as the Obsidian Peaks, a treacherous mountain range far to the west, said to be perpetually shrouded in storms and the domain of powerful elemental forces. The Council of Elders convened once more, their faces grim as they listened to Sira's vision and Brother Elias's findings. The intertwined symbols in Whisperwood now made chilling sense, a subtle marker indicating the interconnected domains and influence of these architects of ruin. The Tempest, controlling the elements, represented a threat on a scale they had not yet encountered. Sister Agnes declared that they could not ignore this new threat. The devastation Sira had witnessed in her vision suggested a potential catastrophe if the Tempest were allowed to unleash its full power. A new expedition was planned, this time to the Obsidian Peaks. Sira, with her unique connection to the demonic and her prophetic vision, would be an integral part of this mission. Brother Elias, with his growing understanding of the architects of ruin, would also accompany her. Sister Lyra, whose resilience and sharp senses had proven invaluable, was also chosen for the journey. Given the perilous nature of the Obsidian Peaks, Brother Marius, with his strength and combat prowess, would once again join their ranks. Preparations for the journey were swift and focused. They gathered cold weather gear, provisions for a long and arduous trek through mountainous terrain, and any lore the order possessed about the Obsidian Peaks and the elemental forces that dwelled there. Sira focused on channeling her powers, trying to understand if her demonic essence held any affinity or resistance to elemental manipulation. As the blizzard outside finally began to subside, leaving behind a landscape blanketed in pristine white snow, Sira, Sister Agnes, Brother Elias, Sister Lyra, and Brother Marius stood ready in the monastery courtyard. Sister Agnes offered Sira a final, encouraging nod. The architects of ruin are revealing their interconnectedness, Serafina. We must meet this new threat head-on. The fate of Ethel may depend on it. With a shared sense of purpose and a growing anticipation of the challenges that awaited them in the storm-racked Obsidian Peaks, they mounted their steeds and rode westward, leaving the sanctuary of the monastery behind. The whispers of the architects of ruin had led them to a new and formidable enemy, and the journey towards the Obsidian Spire had begun. The elements themselves would be their next battlefield. Chapter 44, Ascent into the Storm. The westward journey towards the Obsidian Peaks was a grueling test of endurance. The landscape gradually transformed from rolling hills into jagged, snow-capped mountains that clawed at the stormy sky. The air grew thin and bitingly cold, and the wind howled like a tormented beast, carrying with it the sting of ice and the threat of sudden blizzards. The Obsidian Peaks lived up to their ominous name. Towering spires of black rock pierced the swirling clouds, their jagged silhouettes often obscured by thick fog and driving snow. The terrain was treacherous, a labyrinth of narrow passes, sheer cliffs, and unstable scree slopes. Their horses struggled to find purchase on the icy ground, forcing them to proceed slowly and with caution, often dismounting to lead their steeds through particularly perilous sections. As they ascended higher into the peaks, the signs of the Tempest's influence became increasingly violent and unnatural. They encountered sudden, localized blizzards that seemed to materialize out of nowhere, reducing visibility to near zero and threatening to bury them in drifts of snow. Jagged bolts of lightning, tinged with an unnatural purple hue, split the sky with deafening cracks, striking the mountain peaks around them with alarming frequency. "The tempest is stirring," Brother Elias murmured, his face pale as a particularly close lightning strike illuminated the swirling snow around them. "The very elements are in its thrall." Navigating the treacherous terrain while battling the erratic weather proved to be a constant challenge. They sought shelter in shallow caves and behind massive rock formations whenever the storms became too intense, huddling together for warmth against the biting wind. Sister Lyra's knowledge of mountain paths and her keen eyesight, even through the swirling snow, proved invaluable in guiding them through the labyrinthine peaks. They witnessed strange elemental phenomena that defied natural explanation. Gusts of wind, seemingly sentient, would buffet them from unexpected directions, trying to push them off narrow ledges. They saw small rocks and pebbles levitating in midair, held aloft by unseen forces, and encountered localized pockets of intense cold that seemed to drain the very heat from their bodies. Sira's vision of the Obsidian Spire served as their guiding star, a dark silhouette etched in her mind against the backdrop of the storm-racked sky. She tried to focus her senses, searching for any familiar landmarks or a concentration of demonic energy that might lead them to its location. The air crackled with elemental power, making it difficult to discern the subtle traces of infernal influence. They encountered creatures native to the high peaks that had clearly been touched by the Tempest's power. Mountain goats with eyes that glowed with an eerie blue light charged at them with unnatural aggression, their hooves leaving trails of frost on the rocks. Giant eagles, their feathers crackling with static electricity, circled overhead, their screeches echoing with the sound of thunder. One particularly harrowing encounter involved a localized vortex of ice and wind that materialized in a narrow pass, threatening to tear them apart. Sira, drawing upon the chaotic energy of the brute demon, unleashed a counter-force of raw shadow, disrupting the vortex just long enough for them to scramble to safety behind a massive outcrop of black rock. As they pressed on, following Sira's increasingly strong sense of the spire's presence, the weather grew even more violent. A perpetual storm seemed to rage around a particular cluster of obsidian peaks, the air thick with driving rain, sleet, and the constant flash of lightning. Through the breaks in the storm clouds, they finally glimpsed it, a towering spire of black, glassy rock, its peak lost in the swirling clouds, lightning lashing around it like angry serpents, exactly as Sira had seen in her vision. The obsidian spire, the likely domain of the tempest, loomed before them, a formidable challenge etched against the storm-racked sky. Their ascent into the heart of the tempest had reached its climax. Chapter 45, Eye of the Storm. The final ascent to the obsidian spire was a treacherous dance with the elements. The storm intensified, the wind howling like a chorus of banshees, driving sheets of icy rain against them. Jagged bolts of lightning illuminated the path ahead in blinding flashes, threatening to strike them down with each deafening crack. The very air crackled with raw elemental power, making their skin tingle. As they neared the base of the spire, the storm seemed to focus its fury around it. A swirling vortex of wind and snow enveloped the peak, and the obsidian rock itself hummed with an unnatural energy. From within the storm's eye, a figure began to coalesce. It was not a being of flesh and blood, but rather a humanoid form composed of swirling clouds, crackling lightning, and shards of ice. Its eyes glowed with the intense blue-white light of a raging blizzard, and its voice, when it finally boomed across the peaks, was the roar of thunder itself. This was the Tempest. The architect of ruin unleashed its fury. Blasts of lightning, thick as tree trunks, ripped through the air towards them. Freezing winds, capable of stripping the flesh from bone, whipped around them, and shards of ice, sharp as daggers, rained down from the sky. Sister Agnes and Brother Marius raised their blessed shields, the holy energy deflecting some of the elemental onslaught. Sister Lyra moved with incredible agility, dodging the lightning strikes and ice shards, her movements like a leaf caught in a gale. Brother Elias chanted protective wards, his voice a steady anchor in the storm's fury, creating pockets of relative calm around them. Sira felt a strange resonance with the chaotic energy of the tempest. The raw, untamed power felt akin to the infernal essence within her, albeit in a different form. She extended her senses, trying to understand the elemental forces at play, to find a way to counter them. The tempest raised its arms, and the very ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Cracks of ice spider-webbed across the rocks, and gusts of wind threatened to tear them from their precarious footing. Brother Elias, recalling ancient texts, shouted, "The tempest draws its power from the spire. We must disrupt the connection." Their objective became clear. They needed to reach the spire and sever the tempest's link to its elemental source. But the architect's elemental assault was relentless, making every step a struggle for survival. Sira, drawing upon the chaotic energy of the brute demon, unleashed blasts of raw shadow, colliding with the bolts of lightning. The opposing forces met in bursts of blinding light and deafening thunder, creating momentary openings in the tempest's assault. Sister Lyra, utilizing these openings, darted towards the spire, her movements swift and unpredictable. But the tempest noticed her approach, and a wall of razor-sharp ice materialized in her path, forcing her to retreat. Brother Marius, with a roar of defiance, charged forward, his blessed sword crackling with holy energy. He managed to cleave through a wave of icy shards, but a blast of freezing wind slammed into him, momentarily slowing his advance. Sira realized that a direct confrontation with the tempest in its full elemental form might be impossible. She needed to find a way to disrupt its connection to the spire, as Brother Elias had suggested. Focusing her senses, she could feel the flow of elemental energy, a constant stream connecting the storm-wreathed figure to the obsidian spire. Channeling the cunning of the serpentine demon, Sira began to weave illusions within the storm, creating fleeting images of calm skies and open paths, hoping to momentarily disorient the tempest. The architect roared in confusion as its control over the elements wavered for a fraction of a second. In that brief moment of disorientation, Sira launched herself towards the spire, her obsidian wings beating with all their might. The Tempest, recovering quickly, unleashed a massive bolt of purple lightning directly at her. But Sira was prepared. Drawing upon the resilience of the greater demon, she focused her infernal essence, creating a shield of pure shadow that absorbed the brunt of the lightning strike. The impact sent a jolt of searing energy through her, but she held firm, her eyes fixed on the spire. Reaching the obsidian rock, she plunged her shadowy blades into its surface, focusing her power on disrupting the flow of elemental energy. The spire shuddered violently, and a discordant shriek echoed from the Tempest. Its form began to flicker and dissipate, the swirling vortex of wind and snow around it weakening. The Architect of Ruin, its connection to the spire severed, roared in fury, unleashing a final, desperate blast of elemental energy. But its power was diminished. The storm around them began to subside, the wind losing its bite, the lightning becoming less frequent. The Tempest, its form now unstable and fading, let out a final, mournful wail before dissolving completely into the dissipating storm. Silence descended upon the obsidian peaks, broken only by the sound of their own ragged breathing. The unnatural storm had vanished, leaving behind a landscape dusted with snow under a now clearing sky. The obsidian spire stood tall and silent, its dark surface gleaming in the emerging sunlight. The Tempest was defeated. Chapter 46, Skyfall and Stillness. The immediate aftermath of the Tempest's dissolution was a breathtaking stillness. The howling wind died down to a gentle breeze, the driving rain ceased, and the bruised, purple clouds began to part, revealing patches of a clear, azure sky. The obsidian peaks, moments before a maelstrom of elemental fury, now stood majestic and silent, their dark spires glistening with melting snow under the emerging sunlight. Sira and the Order members stood amidst the quiet, catching their breath, the echoes of thunder still ringing faintly in their ears. They surveyed the scene, the landscape scarred by lightning strikes and patches of ice, but the unnatural energy that had permeated the area was gone. Brother Elias approached the obsidian spire, his hand reverently touching its smooth, glassy surface. "The connection is severed," he confirmed. "The Tempest drew its power from this place, and now, it is just rock once more." They examined the spire for any lingering signs of demonic influence or clues that might shed light on the Tempest's purpose. They found no markings or inscriptions, only the natural formations of the obsidian, now cleansed of the unnatural energy that had crackled around it. Sira reflected on her encounter with the Tempest. It was a foe unlike any she had faced before, a being of pure, untamed elemental power. Her own demonic abilities had offered a strange kind of resistance, a chaotic force meeting another, but it was the Order's faith and Brother Elias's knowledge that had ultimately guided them to sever the Architect's connection to its source. Sister Agnes observed the returning calm with a sense of profound relief. "The elements are once again in balance here," she said. "The Tempest's corruption has been purged." As they rested, sharing what little provisions they had left, Brother Elias recounted more of the lore surrounding the Architects of Ruin. He explained that while three were often mentioned in fearful whispers, the Corrupter of Flesh, Whisperwood, the Weaver of Lies, Viridian, and the Shaper of Storms, Obsidian Peaks, ancient, fragmented texts sometimes hinted at a fourth, shrouded in even greater mystery, often associated with manipulation of fate and the unraveling of reality itself. This fourth architect was rarely named, spoken of only in hushed tones as the Unseen Hand or the Void Weaver. The mention of a fourth architect cast a shadow over their hard-won victory. If three such powerful entities had been actively working to spread chaos and corruption across Ethel, what devastation might the fourth be capable of? And what was their ultimate goal? As they began their descent from the obsidian peaks, the weather remained calm, the mountains bathed in the golden light of the late afternoon sun. The journey down was less arduous, though the treacherous terrain still demanded their full attention. Sister Agnes received another coded message via a messenger who met them at the foothills. This time, the news was troubling. Reports were coming in from the eastern reaches of the kingdom, near the ancient and largely unexplored Shadowfen. Whispers spoke of strange occurrences, temporal anomalies, objects vanishing and reappearing, and a growing sense of disorientation and unease among the local populace. The reports were fragmented and unsettling, unlike the more straightforward signs of demonic incursions they had encountered before. Sister Agnes exchanged a worried glance with Sira and Brother Elias. The descriptions of the disturbances in the Shadowfen resonated with the fragmented lore surrounding the fourth architect, the one associated with the unraveling of reality. "It seems our respite will be short-lived," Sister Agnes said, her voice grave. "The whispers from the Shadowfen, they suggest the handiwork of the final architect of ruin." The defeat of the Tempest had brought a sense of closure to their ordeal in the Obsidian Peaks, but the news from the east signaled the beginning of a new and potentially even more perilous chapter. The architects of ruin were not isolated threats, they were pieces of a larger, more sinister puzzle. With a mixture of apprehension and determination, Sira and the Order turned their gaze towards the shadowy marshes of the east, ready to confront whatever mysteries and dangers awaited them in the domain of the fourth architect. The infernal awakening continued its relentless march. Chapter 47, Into the Unraveling Mire. The journey eastward towards the Shadowfen was a slow and arduous trek. The landscape gradually flattened, the sturdy mountains giving way to a sprawling expanse of murky swampland. The air grew heavy and humid, thick with the cloying scent of stagnant water and decaying vegetation. A perpetual mist hung low over the fen, obscuring the horizon and lending the entire region an eerie, unsettling atmosphere. Entering the Shadowfen felt like stepping into a world where the very laws of nature were frayed at the edges. The ground beneath their horses' hooves was soft and treacherous, a shifting tapestry of mud and tangled roots. Twisted cypress trees, draped with Spanish moss, rose from the dark waters like skeletal sentinels. Strange, bioluminescent fungi pulsed with an otherworldly light in the dim, filtered sunlight. The first signs of the fourth architect's influence were subtle, almost imperceptible. A fleeting sense of déjà vu would wash over Sira, a feeling that she had experienced a particular moment before, even though she knew she hadn't. Brother Elias would occasionally pause, a look of confusion on his face, as if trying to recall a conversation that had never taken place. As they ventured deeper into the fen, the anomalies became more pronounced. They would round a bend in a narrow waterway only to find that the path ahead had inexplicably changed, the familiar landmarks replaced by a different configuration of trees and water channels. Once, Sister Lyra swore she saw a flash of vibrant color in the distance, like a field of wildflowers, only for it to vanish an instant later, replaced by the monotonous gray and green of the swamp. The flow of time itself seemed to become unreliable. Moments would stretch into an eternity, while entire stretches of their journey would feel as if they had passed in the blink of an eye. Conversations would abruptly end, with neither party remembering how they had started. Their memories of the recent past felt hazy and fragmented, like a dream slowly fading upon waking. The disorientation began to take its toll. Even Brother Marius, usually stoic and unwavering, admitted to feeling a creeping unease, a sense that the ground beneath his feet was not just physically unstable, but temporally so as well. Navigation became a nightmare, as familiar landmarks would shift or disappear entirely. They relied heavily on Sira's innate sense of direction, though even she found herself occasionally questioning the reality of her surroundings. They encountered a lone fisherman in a small, dilapidated hut built on stilts above the murky water. The man spoke in disjointed sentences, his eyes filled with a vacant confusion. He spoke of seeing his younger self walking through the fen days ago, and of objects in his hut inexplicably changing their appearance or vanishing altogether. His words painted a disturbing picture of a reality unraveling at the seams. Following the most intense areas of temporal distortion, they found themselves drawn towards a particularly dense and oppressive section of the Shadowfen. The mist here was thicker, almost palpable, and the air vibrated with a subtle, unsettling energy. They noticed strange, shimmering distortions in the air, like heat rising from a fire, but the air was cold and damp. Through these distortions, they would catch fleeting glimpses of other times, a long-vanished structure, a different arrangement of the swamp, even fleeting shadows of figures that did not belong to their present. The chapter ended as they approached a clearing dominated by a massive, ancient cypress tree, its trunk wider than any they had seen before, its branches reaching up into the mist like gnarled claws. The temporal anomalies were at their peak here, the air shimmering and distorting so violently that their surroundings seemed to shift and change with every breath. A profound sense of unease settled over them, the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something truly strange and dangerous, in a place where the very fabric of reality was beginning to fray. The unseen hand, the Void Weaver, was clearly at work, and its influence was far more disorienting and insidious than any they had encountered before. Chapter 48, The Unraveling. The clearing around the ancient cypress tree pulsed with a dizzying array of temporal distortions. The massive tree itself seemed to flicker in and out of existence, its form shifting between different ages, sometimes gnarled and ancient, other times appearing as a sapling. The surrounding swamp water rippled with phantom reflections of events that had never occurred, and the very air tasted of forgotten moments. The fourth architect of ruin did not manifest in a physical form like its predecessors. Instead, its presence was a pervasive feeling, a cold dread that seeped into their minds, whispering doubts about the reality of their surroundings and the reliability of their own memories. It spoke not with a voice, but with a subtle unraveling of their perceptions. One moment, Sister Lyra would be standing beside Sira, the next she would appear several feet away, seemingly having teleported. Brother Marius would swear he had just seen a familiar path, only for it to twist into an unfamiliar dead end. Brother Elias would begin a prayer, only to forget the words halfway through, his mind a blank slate. The architects' attacks were not direct assaults, but a gradual erosion of their sanity and their grip on reality. They found themselves questioning their own senses, unsure of what was real and what was a figment of the Void Weaver's manipulation. Focus! Sister Agnes commanded, her voice strained but firm. Anchor yourselves in the light. Do not let this trickery consume you. She held aloft her blessed crucifix, its holy light a small but potent beacon in the swirling chaos of distorted reality. Sira felt the architect's influence trying to worm its way into her mind, whispering doubts about her past, twisting her memories of Oakhaven and her infernal awakening. She fought back, focusing on the core of her being, on the undeniable reality of the demonic power that flowed within her. It was a constant, unwavering truth in this shifting landscape of lies. Brother Elias, remembering ancient texts describing the Void Weaver, spoke with a newfound clarity. It feeds on uncertainty and doubt. We must hold on to what we know to be true. Our faith, our bonds, the purpose that brought us here. They began to move slowly and deliberately, each action a conscious effort to maintain their connection to reality. Sister Agnes kept the crucifix raised, its light pushing back the encroaching distortions. Brother Marius moved with a steady, unwavering pace, his presence a grounding force. Sister Lyra, despite the shifting environment, used her sharp senses to identify consistent landmarks, focusing on the tangible elements of the swamp. Sira realized that the architect's power was strongest where there was uncertainty. She tried to embrace the chaos of her own dual nature, the human and the demonic, as a form of resistance. The Void Weaver sought to unravel reality, but her very being was a paradox, a tear in the fabric of the natural order. Focusing her senses, she tried to perceive the architect beyond the shifting illusions. She felt a cold, vast emptiness at the heart of the distortions, a void that sought to consume all certainty. It was not a physical presence, but a profound absence, a deliberate unraveling of existence. Their efforts to anchor themselves began to have a subtle effect. The temporal anomalies around them seemed to flicker less violently, the phantom reflections becoming fainter. The architect's hold on their perceptions was weakening. Sensing this resistance, the Void Weaver intensified its assault. The ground beneath them began to ripple and distort, as if the very swamp was turning liquid. Familiar paths twisted into impossible Escher-like structures. The faces of her companions would momentarily morph into grotesque, nightmarish visages, whispering insidious doubts. But they held firm, their faith and their bonds acting as anchors in the storm of unreality. Sira, drawing upon the raw power of the brute demon, unleashed controlled bursts of shadow energy, not as attacks, but as anchors in space, solidifying the ground around them momentarily. Finally, Sira focused her gaze on the ancient cypress tree, which seemed to be the epicenter of the distortions. Despite its shifting appearance, she sensed a core of nothingness emanating from it, the heart of the Void Weaver's influence. With a surge of power, Sira launched herself towards the tree, her obsidian blades shimmering in the distorted light. As she reached it, she didn't strike at a physical form, but instead focused her will, channeling the unwavering certainty of her purpose into the void she sensed within. It was like pouring light into an endless darkness. A silent scream echoed in their minds, a sound of pure, unmaking nothingness. The distortions around them intensified for a moment, then abruptly ceased. The ancient cypress tree stood solid and still. The phantom reflections vanished. The ground beneath their feet became firm. The cold dread that had permeated their minds lifted, replaced by a profound sense of clarity. The Void Weaver's influence had been broken. The unraveling had stopped. The shadowfen around them slowly began to return to a semblance of normalcy, though the eerie atmosphere remained. The temporal anomalies subsided, and their memories began to solidify. The fourth architect of ruin, the master of unreality, had been defeated, not with force, but with unwavering certainty and the anchors of faith and purpose. The long and arduous battle against the four architects of ruin had finally come to an end. Chapter 49, Anchored in Truth. The stillness that settled over the shadowfen after the Void Weaver's undoing was a profound relief. The oppressive sense of unreality dissipated, replaced by the familiar, if somewhat eerie, atmosphere of the swamp. The ancient cypress tree stood solid and unshifting, its branches reaching towards the sky like steadfast guardians. The air no longer shimmered with phantom images, and the flow of time felt steady and predictable once more. Sira and the Order members stood in the clearing, taking stock of themselves and their surroundings. A collective sigh of exhaustion and triumph swept through the group. The battle against the architects of ruin, a journey that had taken them across the breadth of Ethel, had finally reached its conclusion. They spent some time ensuring that the Void Weaver's influence had completely receded, exploring the surrounding area for any lingering temporal anomalies or pockets of distorted reality. The shadowfen, though still a place of mystery and shadows, felt anchored once more, its natural order restored. Sira reflected on the four architects she had faced. The raw, primal corruption of Whisperwood's Beastmaster, the subtle, insidious manipulation of Viridian's Scribe, the untamed elemental fury of the Obsidian Peak's Tempest, and finally, the mind-bending unreality of the Shadowfen's Void Weaver. Each had presented a unique and terrifying facet of the infernal awakening, forcing her to adapt and grow in ways she could never have imagined. Her own demonic powers, once a source of fear and isolation, had become the key to confronting these diverse threats. Sister Agnes gathered the group, her expression a mixture of weariness and profound gratitude. "We have faced the architects of ruin and prevailed," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Through faith, courage, and the unique gifts each of you possess, we have pushed back the darkness." Brother Elias, his scholarly curiosity still intact despite their recent ordeal, mused on the interconnectedness of the four architects, the subtle clues they had left behind hinting at a larger, coordinated plan. He believed that their defeat, while a significant victory, might have disrupted this plan but not necessarily ended the overarching threat of the infernal awakening. As they began their journey out of the Shadowfen, the oppressive humidity and the tangled vegetation seemed less daunting now that reality felt stable once more. They moved with a renewed sense of purpose, the weight of their long journey beginning to lift. Several days later, they arrived back at the Dragon's Tooth Monastery. The familiar sight of the stone walls and the sound of the monastery bells brought a profound sense of homecoming. They were greeted with relief and celebration by the other members of the Order, who had followed their progress with anxious anticipation. Sira found herself feeling more integrated into the Order than ever before. She had proven her loyalty and her strength, not just in battle, but in her unwavering commitment to protecting Ethel from the demonic threat. While she would always be an outsider in some ways, bearing the mark of the abyss within her, she had found a place where her unique abilities were valued and where she could fight alongside others who shared her purpose. After a period of rest and recuperation, Sister Agnes called Sira, Brother Elias, Sister Lyra, and Brother Marius to the Order's central chamber. She held a newly received scroll, its seal bearing the symbol of the High Council. "Our victories have not gone unnoticed," Sister Agnes said, her expression serious. "The High Council acknowledges the defeat of the four architects of ruin. However, this scroll speaks of new disturbances, far to the south, in the sunken city of Eldoria." Sira felt a familiar sense of unease stir within her. Eldoria, the name echoed with the memory of the organized demonic forces and the three-pronged claw symbol. It seemed their battle was far from over. Sister Agnes continued, "The reports speak of a resurgence of demonic activity, but of a different nature than before. Whispers of ancient rituals and a growing power emanating from the ruins. It seems our journey continues." Sira met the determined gaze of her companions. They had faced the architects of ruin and prevailed, but the infernal awakening was a tide that threatened to engulf the world. With a shared understanding and a renewed sense of purpose, they knew their fight was not yet finished. The whispers from the sunken city of Eldoria beckoned them towards a new and uncertain future, where the mysteries of the infernal awakening and the true nature of the demonic threat would continue to unfold. The battle for Ethel would go on. Chapter 50, Depths of the Past. The journey south towards the sunken city of Eldoria took them through landscapes both familiar and new. They traversed rolling hills dotted with ancient ruins, crossed rivers that snaked towards the southern coast, and finally arrived at a region where the land seemed to weep into the sea. Eldoria was not entirely submerged, but rather a sprawling ruin clinging to the coastline, its lower levels swallowed by the encroaching tides, its ancient stones slick with seaweed and the salt spray of the ocean. The air here was heavy with the smell of brine and decay, a stark contrast to the fresh mountain air of the monastery or the earthy scent of whisperwood. The ruins themselves were far more extensive than the Eldoria they had previously encountered. Colossal structures, their architecture hinting at a civilization of immense power and antiquity, rose partially from the waves, their weathered surfaces bearing intricate carvings now eroded by time and the relentless sea. Their initial observations of the demonic activity were indeed different. Gone were the organized patrols of claw-marked demons they had faced before. Instead, smaller groups of more primal, bestial demons roamed the partially submerged streets, their movements seemingly aimless, yet drawn towards certain focal points within the ruins. As they ventured deeper into the city, following the faint trails of demonic energy that Sira could sense, they began to uncover evidence of ancient rituals. In the crumbling remains of what might have been a grand temple, they found strange, circular markings etched into the stone floor, filled with a viscous, black substance that still pulsed with a faint, malevolent energy. Crumbling altars, adorned with bizarre, non-human skulls, stood amidst the debris. Sira sensed a different quality to the demonic energy here. It felt older, more deeply rooted in the very stones of Eldoria, almost as if the city itself was emanating a dark power. It wasn't the focused energy of a hellgate, but something more akin to a lingering curse, a stain upon the fabric of reality. The mysteries of the sunken city hung heavy in the air. Brother Elias, ever the scholar, examined the eroded carvings, his fingers tracing the faded lines. He spoke of Eldoria as a civilization that predated even the oldest records of the Order, a culture rumored to have delved into forbidden knowledge and to have made pacts with entities from beyond the mortal realm. Its sinking, he explained, was attributed to a great cataclysm, a divine punishment for its hubris. They encountered new types of demonic entities, grotesque, amphibious creatures that slithered through the submerged streets, their eyes glowing with an eerie phosphorescence, and winged horrors that nested in the crumbling towers, their screeches carrying an ancient, sorrowful tone. Even the more familiar lesser demons seemed to act differently here, their movements less purposeful, more driven by a primal hunger or a lingering command. As dusk began to fall, casting long, eerie shadows across the waterlogged ruins, they reached a vast, partially submerged plaza. In its center stood a colossal statue, its form too eroded to discern its original likeness, but its sheer size spoke of the city's former grandeur. At the base of the statue, a swirling vortex of dark energy pulsed beneath the murky water, drawing the aimless demons towards it like moths to a flame. The air around the vortex thrummed with an ancient, unsettling power. Sira felt a deep sense of foreboding, a feeling that the secrets of the sunken city and the true nature of this new demonic activity lay hidden within those dark, swirling depths. The depths of the past were stirring, and something ancient and powerful was awakening in Eldoria.